session, but a very important session for today. The session is Power Under Pressure, Turning Resistance into Momentum. This session could not be more timely. Across our country and across our industries, we're witnessing a coordinated pushback against diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just in words, but in policy and in practice. For Black professionals, this moment isn't hypothetical, it's personal, and it's professional, and it demands real, clear-eyed discussion on how we respond. OBAP has always been about more than opening doors to aerospace careers. It's about advocating for systemic changes, about building power together, even when times are tough, especially when times are tough. Today's conversation is an opportunity for all of us to do that work, to think critically, to share honestly, and leave with ideas we can put in motion. I'm proud to introduce the person who will guide us through this discussion, my colleague, my friend, Dr. Theodore Johnson. Dr. Theodore Johnson is an assistant professor at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, an award-winning scholar and advocate whose work focuses on social and racial equity, especially in aviation and aerospace. He also serves as OBAP's board of directors. He also serves on OBAP board of directors as our vice chair and our membership committee co-chair. With his experience in research, teaching, and policy from the FAA to the Capitol Hill, he brings exactly the kind of rigor and heart and commitment this conversation demands. Please join me and give a warm welcome to our moderator, Dr. Theodore Johnson.
Appreciate that, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Tennessee, and good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Great to see y'all. Appreciate y'all coming today. Tennessee, thank you for your leadership and for your grounding us in OBAP's mission and the urgency of today's topic, which I argue is probably more relevant and prevalent today than it has ever been. And good morning to everyone. I'm grateful to be here with you, and I'm honored to help guide this vital conversation alongside our esteemed panelists. The title of our session is Power Under Pressure, Turning Resistance into Momentum. It acknowledges the reality we're facing, an environment where DEI efforts are under attack, cultural war rhetoric is rising, and even the language of inclusion is being co-opted or suppressed, and in some cases, abolished. These aren't abstract challenges. They shape policy, corporate priorities, they change the giving landscape, and they shape our workplaces as well as our lives. We've invited a remarkable panel of cross-sector leaders to help us explore these questions. And before we dive into the discussion, I want to invite each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves and share a bit about the perspective they're bringing to this conversation. And I'll start with Dr. Sharon DeVivo, President and CEO of Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology.
Thank you. So, very pleased to be here, thrilled to be on this panel and looking forward to the conversation. Vaughn College is located across the street from LaGuardia Airport, so next time you go into New York, just look across the Grand Central, you will see us. We've been in existence since '32, more than 80% of our students from underrepresented and under-resourced communities, and the best in the country at moving students from the bottom 40% in income to the top. And that's not only a testament to Vaughn, that's also a testament to the industry that they join and the fact that the salaries have gotten so much better, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DeVivo. Next, Michelle Merriweather, President and CEO of the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, otherwise known as ULMS.
Good morning. It's an honor to welcome you to the Pacific Northwest. I apologize that the weather didn't cooperate. We usually have beautiful weather during the summer. But I'm glad you are here and chose to host your conference in this region. It's always a pleasure to see Black faces, visitors. I come to this work certainly as a consumer of aerospace, but as a leader of the Urban League family. The Urban League in Seattle is 95 years old. Across the country, 115, and we are dedicated to empowering Black lives, making unapologetically, still 115 years later, and certainly support any underrepresented group. But we provide services, direct services, advocacy, and the like, so this conversation is personal for me in my work and in life. So honored to be here with you all.
Thank you, Ms. Merriweather. And last but certainly not least, a good brother of mine, colleague, friend, and a lot of other nouns, Mr. Jalen Boone, technology leader and founder of Speak to the Salt Youth Mentoring Organization.
Thank you, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. I am absolutely energized by the work of OBAP and seeing so much Black excellence in one space. It made me want to put on a uniform myself. I am not from the aerospace profession, but man, I asked Dr. J, I said, how long will it take me to at least get my pilot's license so I could be amongst the excellence? And he said,
Come
"Oh,
talk
about-"
to me. Come talk to me.
He said about 3 months, and then he showed me the one of the 6 books that I would have to get through, and I said, 3 months for who? I got 2 kids, but I will talk to you, and we'll see so I can join the excellence. But Speak to the Salt is an organization that was birthed out of Flint, Michigan, that is designed to educate, equip, and empower underrepresented youth for a better and more purposeful future. And this industry is one that can help them do that at scale. So I am excited to be here, energized by the conversation, and just honored to be a part of the overall mission of lifting up our communities.
Thank you for that, Brother Boone. So as you all can tell, we have a diverse and esteemed group of panelists that have expertise in various areas to help us tackle this very intersectional and nuanced problem that we're facing now that has kind of wreaked havoc for many people, and particularly our industry, as we've sought to diversify the workforce and really do good, which is at the core of this organization. So understanding how the landscape has changed quite significantly in just 8 months, and really within the first 2, the socio-political climate has dictated the actions and behaviors of many organizations, not just in the private sector, but has also leached into the public and nonprofit sector, which has strangled or confined kind of what impact can be made and how people can operate without necessarily losing their livelihoods or siloing themselves from certain resources. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have this panel, to be able to provide information and mobilize you all to take that back to your respective communities and workplaces, so that way we can continue to fight, even though the fight may look a little bit different. So with that being said, the first question I'm going to ask as kind of the opener is given the current socio-political climate, what do you believe is the most pressing threat facing Black professionals today, and what should our response be? And I'm going to ask Ms. Merriweather to open that up.
Where do I begin? I think being in the skin that we are in is threat enough right now. Our careers and livelihoods are certainly being tested and threatened. I think by virtue of the skin you are in, especially in the field you are in, people on the opposite side want to believe that you got to where you are by some metric or meter that they had to metric that they had to meet or quota that they had to meet. We know for a fact that that is absolutely untrue, that you had to study harder, had to work harder, 3 times as hard as your Caucasian counterpart to get to where you are, and still have to prove yourself each and every day. And so for that, I first want to say thank you for dealing with that. Now, I think as the threats come against us, one, I think the first thing that we need to do is take care of ourselves, take care of our mental health, our personal health, our families, because when the world is in chaos, what do we traditionally do? We take care of home. We also tend to take care of everyone else, right? Everyone else looks to Black women in particular for the answer, for support, for wisdom, for protection, and certainly Black men. So that doesn't change. We still need to be in that spirit of protection. But I think first and foremost, we need to take care of home and make sure that we are okay. So check in with yourselves, your own mental health and well-being. I think second, show up unapologetically who you are, wholeheartedly, Don't apologize for anything. Stand in your truth and stand in your power without fail, without resistance. You have nothing to apologize for. And on the contrary, we are the people that get the work done. So I think, if there are challenges that come our way, I think seek out resources like the Urban League, like NAACP, like Ben Crump, whoever the case may be, so you know that you are not fighting this battle alone, that you have an army standing behind you. We are not afraid to push against the administration. The National Urban League has sued the administration a number of times, and will again. We have to be prepared and ready to fight and be the opposition in this moment, and as we always have been. The Urban League has been here for well over 100 years. We have fought battles like this before. We lived through the Civil Rights era. We lived through the Jim Crow era, and we will live through this. But I think in the moment that we're in, we can't separate. We have to unify, and we have to be prepared to push up against the machine unapologetically and galvanize together. We are better as a collective unit than we are apart, and seek out partnerships and resources wherever we can.
Thank you for that. So I hear a lot about unity and leaning on our community of support, not pouring from an empty cup, which we all know we probably do far too often. And then you mentioned kind of the question of qualification. And we all know the standard is the standard, right? I don't think anybody has ever had an easy evaluation or check ride. If you have, please let me know, because I'm trying to go to your DPE. But the question of qualification has become the norm, in the past 8 or so months, and it's more brazen and bold, which we know kind of threatens the credibility and reputation that we bring into the flight deck or into the workspace. And it makes people maybe not want to, or I should say it encourages people to revolt and cause disjointment or discord rather than unification, despite us having some of the same goals. Brother Boone, what would you have to offer to that?
Yeah, off the heels of both of your comments, I think the most pressing threat is actually the temptation to give up. Right. I think I come from a background of sports and football, and as a spectator of football, you just expect that every drive has the goal to score, right? But when you get into the nuances of the sport, you realize there's strategy, and there may be a play that a coach runs over and over again that appears to not be successful. Right? Why do they keep running up the middle? There's so much space on the outside. But what you don't realize is that coach is looking to wear down the defensive line and the second layer of defense so that they get tired enough and anticipate the same play enough so that when they run a play action pass and go deep, the opposing team does not have the stamina to defend. And they know that if they can break the will of the defense, then in the third and fourth quarter of the game will be much easier. What I perceive to be happening right now and over the course of history is a desire to break down the defense so that when they're running the long play, I don't think the long play has even happened, but I do believe that the long play is coming and they're trying to catch you tired and trying to catch you not energized or not unified. And so the biggest threat is actually us becoming so tired that when the actual war comes, we don't have enough energy to fight. And so my admonition to you all is to stay ready, stay energized, stay rested, and stay unified, because you can overcome this, and like a tired defense, you still can make a goal line stand. So that would be my response.
I really like that football analogy, and if I'm hearing what you're saying, we're only in the first quarter of this game. And to your point, I know a lot of folks that have already stayed and quit. And understandably so. It's very fatiguing to go into a workplace already when you are a person of color, or especially a black person, because you're dealing with two different battles. And now you have an administration and you have leaders who are encouraging type of behavior with no repercussion. There have been certain things been stripped away that we traditionally could lean on to offer some type of safeguard in a place that we're already othered. So I really appreciate that comment of staying rested and not giving up, and hope that some of you all who may know colleagues like that can go back and tell them that and kind of re-energize them. And I think that's one of the important pieces of this conference is that people come to get re-energized. And I'm hoping that, through day 2 and day 3, they feel that and can go back and re-engage their fight. Dr. DeVivo, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so, it's been a tough 8 months, and I'm not a black person, right? So I can only, and I've had students crying in the bathroom after the DCA crash. We do air traffic control as one of our programs, and I had a transgender student who was like, I'll never pass the medical now. And, that's when the mom in me kicks in, right? And I want to kick some ass. But, it's, I think you're so right about this idea of, taking care of yourself. And, white people have got to, and I say this as a white person, have got to take up this fight. You cannot do it alone. You can't. And if we're not listening, paying attention, and doing what we can in our own spheres of influence, then it feels like we're always going to be back at the starting line. And I hate to see my students question their own ability. I was on a panel in the spring, and there was a couple of congressional folks on the panel, and the DEI question, they asked me if I didn't mind talking about students. And about 10 minutes before I went up, I was told that one of these congressional folks was going to jump in on me. And so the whole time I'm on the panel, I'm thinking to myself, what can I say to get him not to open his mouth, right? And so when they asked me the question, I just said, listen, I just try to remind my students that you are well qualified. You pass the same tests everybody else does, and that you fit. You're right. You deserve to be there. What's he going to say? He can't say anything, right? So in our own networks, we have to do the fighting as well, so that you don't have to do it alone.
I think you bring up a very good point about leaning on your networks and fighting as a unit. We're stronger together. And you also mentioned kind of having a call to action to white Americans to aid in the fight. So in that same vein, in whatever spaces you're in, government, academia, private, how do you all, and Dr. Vila, we'll start with you, how do you navigate those spaces in terms of interaction with colleagues and also in the language to push back against certain things that are equity focused or equity rooted?
So I think calling it out when you hear it, right? You don't have to be, I try not to be overly whack them with it, but I see it differently. I'll give you an example, right? I have so many awesome stories that I can share, and I think making it personal is a great way to convince somebody, because they're just thinking about it, and a lot of times it's often this, what I read, what I heard. They don't actually have a relationship with a person of color that they can say, oh wait, maybe that's not true, or maybe that's not the case. And don't make it about their own personal prejudice, right? Kendi talks about this, addressing it as a system. And when you sort of get away from making it about them in particular, it can at least make the conversation easier to have. And then when you start with some data and some facts, some things that you just have at your fingertips, I often find they just shut down, because all of their argument is based on stuff that they've read but don't really understand.
That's a great point, utilizing data and trying to get them maybe to a neutral point, through that personal or maybe that systemic view. Ms. Merriweather, as leader of the Urban League in your area and somebody who has engaged in similar fights, what is your perception on that? How do you engage in those equity-rooted battles?
Patience. Because I have found that even when I use data, it doesn't work, because they are so rooted in their own truth that data, science, facts mean nothing. So one, I have to, again, going back to my own mental health and protection, I have to do that first. But then stories often do. When you do make it personal, when you do I'll say not back down, and put truth and faith and fact behind it. So they see the person or know the person using my own stories, my own life, being one black person in a room full of white folks nearly my whole life, using those stories and how it made me feel and how, you know, I had to adapt to them as opposed to them adapting to me, and making it personal always helps. I think, but now the time that we are in, I think they'll have to hear it over and over again. It's not going to work if it's just me. It's not going to work if it's just the three of us. I think they have to continuously hear it and see it. They're not watching the same news channels that we're watching. They're not reading the same articles and social media posts that we're reading. They're reading and hearing things that play to their beliefs and facts. So I think we're also going to have to play the long game. And so it's really hard, I think, at the end of the day. But I think the being continuous, being mindful, and just keep on putting yourself out there. And then I will also say that practicing forgiveness for yourself and patience and backing away when you just before it goes too far. Like pushing away, don't entertain it, don't make it change you, because that's what they're waiting for, a reaction from you. So don't give into it, don't play into it. And also, I think this is not necessarily our fight. I think it is we are the 92%, we are the 80+%. We didn't ask for this. I honestly believe that at some point, those that put this in play are going to be the ones that take this away, because it is impacting them tremendously. And so I think in time, going back to taking care of ourselves, it'll be their fight and their fight to win. We will back them up, but I think we have to protect ourselves.
Mr. Boone, as somebody who is an excellent storyteller and narrator, how do you use your natural gifts, abilities, and just techniques of your craft to engage with individuals who are actively rolling back equity efforts or having equity-based conversations with folks that ignore data and maybe don't want to hear some of the stories or can't connect to the system?
So I was actually watching an interview of Tiger Woods early on when he was moving into his first pro tournament. And he's sitting across from a white interviewer who has spent his life in the golf space. And he asked Tiger, what does success look like for you? And he says, I want to play well, I want to do this, and ultimately I want to walk away with the win. And you could see the offense on the face of the interviewer, because if anyone knows the sport of golf, just to break the top 25 or to break the top 10 is success, right? Just to make the cut and make the final day of play is success. And for someone coming into the game to say that you want to win and beat people that dedicate their life to this is offensive. And so he says, win. You want to win your first pro tournament. Do you understand what this game is? And he says, yes, I do. And he says, you will learn. You will learn. Fast forward, Tiger not only wins, he dominates. He becomes a history maker. And they had to sit down again, same interviewer, same Tiger, but with many more decorations. And he says, I think I owe you an apology. The first time I interviewed you, I told you you will learn, but it was me who had lessons to learn. And that, I think, is a story that illustrates what we're up against. You become so good that they can't deny you. And someday they will have to sit across from you and say, I thought you had lessons to learn, but all the while it was I who had a lesson to learn, right? And so that's the answer, and that's the way I try to show up into every room, whether I'm one of many or one of one. I look to articulate myself in such a way that you have to at least respect the man you're looking at, and I actually represent an entire race of people who can do the same thing I'm doing if you give them the opportunity.
So I heard that same story Hey, please do. And I watched that same interview, but hearing you tell, I got goosebumps. And that's the type of energy we need, and one of the purposes of the ultimate goal of this session is to mobilize and empower you all to take what you learn, because we don't want to lecture at you. We want to empower and mobilize you so we continue this fight through the long game, as Mr. Boone mentioned. So with that notion of mobilization and advocacy, we hear the term activist or activism, right? And a lot of us know what that means. A lot of us engage in advocacy, but some of us may be a little bit hesitant or reluctant for various reasons. You know, we don't want to rock the boat is a common terminology, especially in workplaces that should be apolitical, but we know they're not. You know, they're very charged. So my question to you all, and we'll go ahead and start with Ms. Merriweather for this one. What does effective political or workplace advocacy look like in 2025, particularly for somebody who doesn't consider themselves to be an activist?
It looks like showing up every day and being undeniable. It looks like making sure that even in the test, that you are prepared. It looks like checking on your friends and your colleagues that look like you. It looks like grace and patience. It looks like holding space for yourself even when you're tired or exhausted. It looks like speaking truth to power even if your voice shakes or you're nervous or you're scared or you think that you might lose your job. It looks like just showing up every day, unapologetically who you are. You don't have to hide behind anybody or anything. You are 100% who you are, and you don't have anything to apologize for. And it looks like just saying the thing, the hard thing, even if you don't feel like you can. You absolutely can. For example, I sit on a lot of boards and do a lot of work in our community, and one board in 2020 decided to turn themselves and state that they were an anti-racist organization in 2020 upon the murder of George Floyd. Fast forward to 2025, and a memo comes out from the administration saying that if you use this particular language, you're going against the administration and all these words that you're not supposed to use. And so they're changing their language. And my response to them was, I thought you were an anti-racist organization. And they said, well, we don't want to cause harm to our partners, our friends. I said, well, if you are an anti-racist organization, that means you are willing to put yourself in front of us to protect the most marginalized. If you want to change the language, that means you're willing to put us in harm's way. You are not an anti-racist organization. You're in fact the opposite. So for 5 years I've sat on this committee. For 5 years we have made plans, we have said the thing, we've changed policy, and in a stroke of a pen they've taken it all away. And it was my responsibility that has been the person that has, there's a few of us that have been in this committee making plans and making these changes to push up against them. Like, you can't, just because an administrator, first of all, it's not law. This is just a memo, like a cute little memo, like, try me if you want to. Like, they're not gonna come after everybody if everybody is standing up against, pushing up against the machine. They can't. They don't have the power to come up against everybody. But if everybody takes a knee and does what they have asked, it makes it real easier to come after the marginalized. So my response is, say the hard thing. Make sure that they're doing the work. Hold them accountable to all the things, the cute things that they said in 2020. Make sure that they're holding true to it now, especially now when we need it most. Right? It was easy to say when we all watched the same thing happen in 2020. It was easy to say, oh, we stand with you. We need you to stand with us now when it's hard. And then we can go much further.
Dr. DeVivo, as somebody who sits as the president and CEO of a college, you have a very unique top-down view on different efforts amongst the campus. And I know you've engaged in work in the space with renowned scholars like Dr. Becky Luty and others in the governmental space. What does advocacy and activism look like for you from your perch?
Yeah, well, I can help shape the culture at my institution. In fact, I'm responsible for doing that, right? So that's one way. But I get it wrong, right? When George Floyd passed, I did a series of memos. I didn't always get it right, and I had to be willing to listen to the people of color on my staff. The majority of faculty and staff at Vaughn are from underrepresented communities, so I have to be sensitive to that. I have to listen. Same thing, Gaza, Israel, got it wrong. Had somebody in my office, right? And so I have to be willing to learn. That's the other thing is, and I can't just assume that once I've read it, that's it, I don't have to do anything else, right? I have to constantly be making sure that I'm aware and following and passing along those learnings, not holding it on to myself. You know, in higher education, we have a lot of institutions that are bending the knee right now, right? And it's that could be a whole panel in of itself, how we call a thing, one thing at the same time that they're doing it, right? It's bizarre. But, staying true to who our institution serves is really important to me. So we're not going to stop talking about the really hard things, right? May not be on the website, but we're not going to stop talking about the really hard things. And it's going to require, and you're starting to see institutions that are banding together, signing letters together. When you're there by yourself, it's really hard. This idea that we can go faster or farther together is so true. And so being able to have those conversations and say, we've got each other's backs. And I've been really proud of the airline industry through this, right? And to see so many of them stick by their belief and their commitment to DEI and not back away from it is incredibly helpful. And it certainly makes the case for our students to join the industry as well and to feel welcome and included.
Absolutely. The two of you mentioned accountability and being open and having willingness to learn and say, yes, I made a mistake, and then shifting. I think that definitely plays a huge role in advocacy and activism because it maybe shows the humanistic or relatability nature, and that things don't happen in a vacuum. Mr. Boone, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's important first to observe and recognize those who are shifting in this time. The old saying goes, and someone shows you their true colors, believe them. And I think that it's important to be mindful of the energy to not try to get those who are shifting to stay first, right? Because that's the initial inclinations. Where you think you're going, you stay, right? But be observant of those who are taking the opportunity to find a way out, which tells you that perhaps they were never all the way in to begin with. That's step one that I would say. Step two, I had a conversation with Dr. DeVivo, obviously prior to the panel, and just in having a conversation, we find our commonalities and we find ways to partner. So step two is find the true activists that are already fighting for the cause and say, how can we band together to continue to propel this mission forward? And the third thing that I would say is three things that you called out, and let me make sure that I have it right. As far as the themes was purpose, courage, and strategy. Right? I think the courage piece comes natural when you have passion for something. The purpose, we know we're trying to do, but sometimes that, in my observation, what we've lacked as a community sometimes is the strategy. Now you go back to the civil rights movement, it was very strategic. It was they would come together behind closed doors, and then they would go out as a unit and execute without an announcement so that you could not get ahead of the movement that they were doing. I think now with the rise of social media, we all get on in our silos and turn on our phone and tell the world what we're about to gonna do, right? Before we actually come together, strategize, and mobilize, we tell the world and the opposition with them, hey, we're about to such and such and such. And so they can adjust. So I think the thing that we need to do is to get that strategy piece together with those who have already declared themselves advocates and activists. And then once the strategy is solidified, we need to move as a unit, move swiftly, and move together so that the opposition is caught off guard, similar to the play action pass.
I like that. So I'm hearing we need to have more discernment and be a bit more intentional with how we strategize, organize, similar to what, leaders in the past did, so that we don't have our plans sabotaged. And you also mentioned effectively engaging people that are doing the work already. So it kind of leads me to my next question. And Dr. Viva, I'm going to point this one to you. How do we engage non-Black allies effectively to join this space? Not really the ones that are already doing the work, but those that may be more of a neutral mentality or a complicit mentality.
Yeah, it's I think for me, it is really about sharing the amazing work that we do at the institution. I mean, I think there's this, right, fill in the blank on the stereotype. Lazy, takes advantage, right? All of those awful things. And when I can point to students who have bought their family a home, right? Changed the course of their entire trajectory based on their hard work, dedication, diligence, going beyond the minimum just to get noticed, right? That's when it starts, oh, wow, that's impressive, right? Sometimes I lean more on the low income, less on the color of the person's skin, just to help try to get to a place where that person can start to understand and to break down the stereotypes and the prejudices. Sharing students, like I said before, individual stories, is so powerful in terms of winning hearts and minds. That's how I try to engage folks, is to be, and I am, to both your points, I am super enthusiastic about who I serve, right? And so oftentimes they will pick up on that, right? And get curious. Like, well, why are you so excited? Why do you seem to be so enthusiastic about the work? And that will oftentimes get somebody interested. That too, and they, aviation we got a lot of good toys, right? So take a ride in the sim while I tell you a story. And the impact, people have a really hard time denying that.
Absolutely, I agree. Mr. Boone, I know that you sit on the board for your alma mater, which is located in a place where there are not a lot of us, significantly underrepresented. So in that space, how do you engage some of the non-Black allies to continue to do the work that you do for your board, as well as just in general as it relates to DEAI?
Yeah, I help them solve the problem, right? Everybody doesn't have to know my intentions and my mission. I don't think the opposition always makes theirs clear until they feel confident enough that nobody can stop it. And so, for instance, as a member of the board and a graduate of the College of Business, we are in the process of hiring a new dean, right? And so, as someone who's contributed to the university over the years and a person of influence, of course, I get the opportunity to be on that search committee, right? And so what they're looking for me to do is provide insights as a former student of the College of Business and someone who has succeeded post-graduation. That's what they're looking for my insight on. But with the insight that I'm bringing, as I look at the job description, as I sit in the rooms that we interview the candidates, is what is your perspective of inclusion, right? I get the opportunity to be in the rooms when the decisions are made, and that is my influence. I didn't walk in there and stand on a table and say, hey, this is what we're doing. But believe when I sit at the round table, that is what is on my mind. And so that is the way that I found myself to impact in rooms where they may not stand up and explicitly say, how do I become an activist along with you? But when it's talk about explicit conversation, something that I observed is, and regardless of how you feel about it, there's really one oppressive, I'm trying to watch my words, but there is one party, meaning one person or type of person that seems to be at the center of a lot of these efforts. But when I talk to Dr. DeVivo, when I talk to Mrs. Merriweather, they both know what it feels like to be in a room, whether it's as a black person or as a female, to know what it feels like to not be respected. So instead of trying to get you to see my plight as an African American male, let's just talk about what it feels like to be a minority in a room. And once I can connect with your feeling of being a minority, then we can talk about what it feels like specifically to be black as a minority. Then I could talk to you about the students in Flint, Michigan, and their plight and the trajectory that they're on if someone like you does not engage and step in. And then it becomes undeniable because you've already agreed with me that we have a common feeling as minorities in this space. And so that's the way that I address it directly and indirectly, is you find the common ground, and then once they're bought in, they can't check out. They were excited about that answer.
Ms. Merriweather is somebody who engages with a slew of stakeholders and often advocating for the Urban League. What techniques, methods, or what do you use to engage those folks to get them to buy in to what y'all are doing?
They're having a good time over there.
The youth day is popping right now.
They're popping. I feel like we need to meet their energy.
Just yell back.
Just yell back, just one time. Y'all got it? Y'all got it?
Let's go. Everybody
Let's
yell.
go. One time, just one time.
1, 2, 3. There we go.
I think for me, showing up in those rooms, they automatically know my agenda because I'm Michelle Merriweather, CEO of the Urban League, who for 95 years have advocated for and behalf of black folks. I think in those spaces, for those sort of apathetic folks that are at those tables, that's where data can play a role. It's harder when the folks are already made their mind up or listening to other sources of news and media. But the ones that are just sitting there quietly towing the line, not taking a stance on either side, that's where you can use the data of the impact of our work, the data of the impact of our partners' work, and as a whole, the metrics of black folks in particular. That's who I advocate for, and the fact that we are the top of every bad list and the bottom of every wrong list for the most part, with the exception of black women in education. We can use that, and they hear that. Those folks are looking for our partners, the CEOs of these corporations. We have a lot of great corporations that are based here. The Costcos, the Amazons, the Microsofts of the world, they're looking for the data to connect to. Those tech companies believe in the data. So when we can use, that's where that becomes a powerful tool. The data and the stories to become a powerful tool for the apathetic, for the people that don't want to make waves, don't want to call too much attention to themselves. If you notice, Costco has not wavered, not one bit, on their stance on DEI. But that was who they were before. And you also notice that they're not on media talking about this is who we are. They're not, in the paper. Other people put them in the paper, but Costco said, no, we've been doing this work this way since we started as an organization. We have no reason to change now, and we don't owe you an explanation for that, because this is who we are at the core of our being. So I think we have good partnerships here. We have built that that layer of trust, but that's where the data comes in.
So it sounds like utilizing qualitative personal stories and quantitative data, that's the researcher in me coming out, y'all forgive me, is a way to help kind of shift and maybe find this common ground for us to move forward. So I know Jalen, Mr. Boone, you mentioned utilizing common ground to kind of reshape or reframe the narrative, which is key for shifting the needle. how do we shift the conversation from DEI, from being seen as a diversity problem, to kind of center progress, innovation, and justice in the aviation space and external to it?
Yeah. Dr. Johnson, how many members on OBAP's board of directors?
7.
Okay. And how many panelists on this stage?
3.
Okay. So why not 1? Why don't we just have Dr. Johnson or Mr. Garvey be the single standing board member for OBAP and make all the decisions for the organization? Why not just have one of us sit on this stage for 90 minutes and talk to you about our perspective of how we move things forward? OBAP and this organization and this room of people values diverse perspectives, not because I'm just black, not because I'm just a male, not because you're just a doctor with a PhD, right? But because each of us have come from a different place with different lived experiences, different professional experiences, right? And when we come together, we have a more holistic view of a single thing. It's seeing the Coke can from all the different perspectives. And so when I have these conversations, I don't always lead with, oh, because it's the right thing to do for humanity. It's the right thing to do for this university, right? You continue to ask me to come and speak to your students. You continue to lean on me for expertise in certain areas. So there's something about my experiences that you value. I am not one of one, I'm one of many. And so if you want more Jalen Boones at the table, then you have to allow more Jalen Boones to sit at the table. And that's a way that I see that.
Do you mind if I add something? And
Please.
Mr. Boone and I were talking about this before, and 2 things that I've used. One is safety, a diverse perspective, and aviation is all about safety. We actually add a layer of security to our safety systems by having different kinds of viewpoints. If everybody thinks the same, we're not going to see the thing, right? And the other piece is you can't argue with the demand, right? There are not enough white people to fill the jobs. So we're going to have to go into underrepresented communities and help them to know about these awesome career opportunities. Because typically, unless your white uncle, brother, cousin is in the industry, you just don't know, right? So lean on that as a way to do it. You need people. You got to build awareness in those communities to give that, and think about the opportunity that affords, right? But I think safety and workforce demand are 2 other ways that we can have this conversation.
Ms. Merriweather, anything to add?
No, not really. I think that's right. We want a diverse group of people to make those decisions. You don't want a single. I'm a marketing person by trade, and it is our responsibility, our work, to make sure that we're selling to everyone, right? That we have diverse perspectives to make sure that thing. You mentioned a Coke can. I worked for Coca-Cola for a long time. To make sure that thing, that widget, that Coke can is marketable to as many people as possible. That they see themselves with that thing. That they see themselves utilizing that thing. And if you don't have that person in that room to say, yeah, well, hold up, that might not be a good idea, Gucci and the blackface, right? Like, who was not in that room to make that decision that said that we may not want to do that, we may want to take a different route, or Old Navy and the T-shirt, and there's many examples. But when when that thought and that perspective is missing. Now for aviation, it probably is safety. It probably is even in the food that you receive on the airline or the movies that you watch in the airline. I fly Alaska a lot, and Alaska during certain times of the year have Black experience movies, Latinx experience movies, because somebody's in that room saying, hey, we may want to think about providing some resource to that particular group of people because they fly on our airlines a lot, or we want them to feel comfortable while they're here. And if that voice is not at that table, your bottom line will feel it. I'm speaking specifically to corporations. Your bottom line will know. Because what I do know, again, is that black folks are consumers. We are consumers by trade. And we go and spend our money where we are comfortable. Ask Target, right? Ask Target how they feel right now about not feeling the bulk of our resources because they don't value our opinion or our thought and, quite frankly, our money. So, of course, you want those folks at the table. And, I will also say, I believe that there was a woman that worked for Target for a long time that was that voice. She retired, and now this is all happening. So, I believe that that's what happened.
I wanted to add one more thing that you sparked. From a sales background myself, I was taught early by a VP, successful salespeople sometimes create a problem to then come and solve. And I think as a community, once again, the strategy piece, sometimes we need to create the problem to then come in and be the people to solve. What do I mean by that? We talk about voting with your dollars and being a consumer by nature, right? And so one of the ways that we can do that and have done successfully in some ways, not successfully in others, is create a financial problem, right? Create the demand problem. And sometimes you have to let the smarter people find out that they weren't so smart to begin with, right? We were just talking off stage that in the recent news, they're now approving to add 450 jobs in the weather advisory space in this exact same space that just a couple months ago they were so sure they had overage and needed to cut. What happened? Some natural disaster, some things outside of your control, and now the rest of the world is looking and saying, wait, didn't you just say that we didn't need that many people and they weren't doing anything? And now, I don't think they woke up with a change of heart. They saw a problem that they needed to correct. And so in the same way, sometimes you need to let the problem play out and just be ready to be the solution when the problem happens.
I do think that's part of this administration's MO. I do.
So we've talked about or hit on the themes of mobilization, advocacy, empowering the community to resolve problems, reframing the narrative, all of which have had several underlying themes and tones to help push this needle in the right direction. However, again, one of the goals of this panel is to mobilize folks or empower them to take this information back and do something with it. So therefore, we have to have some calls to action, right? So as we kind of round this session out before we transition to the Q&A and open forum, I would like each of you to maybe kind of share what your call to action is based on the question I state. So we're going to start with Mr. Boone. What is one thing each of us can do now to protect the progress that's been built and build off the momentum, no matter where we are in our industry or whatever job we hold?
I'll give an example from yesterday's welcome event. I had the opportunity to engage with Mr. Dewan, who's in the back of the room. Good to see you, brother. Young guy, 21 years old, pursuing his certifications in Orlando, Florida, which we can all imagine is a tough environment to be a young black male trying to excel. And he shared some things with me about his personal life, his personal experience, as well as the professional pursuit. And in just conversing with him and what I do for a living and having, people in my network, I said, there's someone that I need you to meet, right? Because I can only take you so far as a mentor who is not in the aviation space, right? But I do know someone who's been in your shoes and successfully navigated, and you are at the OBAP conference after all. And so I called Dr. Johnson and I said, hey, I need you to come meet me ASAP. And he did, because he's a good friend and he's about the mission. And just in connecting those two, they were able to connect, but then you were able to do something very powerful, which is turn your back and find two more black men who had did exactly what he's trying to do. And now he has 3 mentors in the aerospace industry who can help him navigate what felt like a hopeless situation just 10 minutes before we engaged. That is the power. That is the call to action. Go find the students who are struggling and plug yourself in as a mentor to help them navigate, and you will, by default, change the trajectory of the world, because I tell the students, if you want to change the world around you, and you will change the world by default. So my call to action is to plug in and to help the one who may help the many.
Ms. Merriweather?
Yes and amen. Yes and amen. Following that, I think for me, I sit at a lot of tables where when I'm invited to the table, I'm invited to bring the perspective of all Black folks. Me, Michelle. I'm like, I can provide some. I can provide mine. I can provide, the data of the folks that we serve. But what I can also do is make sure that I'm not the only one sitting at this table. So you hear the diversity of us, because we are just diverse as any other creature on this planet. So my responsibility or my call to action is making sure that I'm not the only one sitting at that table, that I'm opening doors for other voices to sit at the table. And the Pacific Northwest in particular is making sure that there are Black men sitting at those tables, because they somehow feel comfortable with Michelle and some of my other colleagues, but in the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of void of Black male voices, and I feel like I attempt to open those doors and make sure that their voices are at the table too.
Dr. DeVivo?
So I'm not going to tell Black people anything. That's not my job. It's not, right? My job is to tell the white people that, one, have courage. Most people I know feel very similar to how I feel. So have courage in the spaces you're in. Don't stop learning, right? Be curious. And the other piece is check in with the people that you work with or that are part of your community. Well, if you don't have any people of color in your network, that's problem one. Go find some, right? Make some, be intentional. But check in with the folks who are having a tough time right now, right? It can mean a lot for you to say and be that person that says, I got the fight right now. Take a rest. And to be that listening ear and that person who can really help. And yeah, have courage and be curious.
Have courage, be curious, check in. Reach one, teach one, invite them to the table with intentionality. Plug in and be a mentor to change the narrative. I think we can all do that, especially in this place, right? We can all agree to that? Y'all don't sound confident. All right, there we go. Okay. So last question for you all, and you all done a great job. If you could leave us today with a slogan or mantra that really captures and coalesces this moment, what would it be? And we can start with Dr. DeVivo.
Yeah, so I love that Swahili quote about, you can go faster alone, but you can go farther together. And I really believe we can go farther together. We have to on this one.
Meriwether?
I have lots. I'm trying to pick one. I think the one that I will leave you with right now is by one of my favorite poets, Kendrick Lamar. We gonna be all right. We gonna be all right. Like all that is going on, all that we are being tested and tried, we gonna have this energy that they're having over here. We gonna be all right. If that's the energy that our young people have right now, we gonna be all right. So
Amen.
This gives
I
me
like
energy,
that.
right? So just listen to that. That shows you that in the midst of this chaos, there is joy, and we're gonna get through it.
Absolutely. Y'all know that I'm gonna tell a story by now. But before I do that, there was a question that we haven't gotten to about how to take care of yourself and rest during this. And I think it's such an important topic that if I could have the privilege to speak on that, because it's necessary.
Absolutely.
And my advice is to rest before you have to. I think so many people in general, but us as a Black community, we wait until we have no choice but to rest. And at that point, it's too late. I got an old iPhone 12 Pro, y'all, forgive me. Yeah, and that battery don't do nothing no more. I take it off the charger and it go down to 83. And so I have this nice outfit on, but in this inside pocket, I have a charger with me. Because if I let it go too far, I don't have enough battery to operate. And I think we need to treat ourselves like this old phone sometimes, is you think you're on 80%, so you don't need to charge, but you need to go ahead, if you can take a beat and get back up to 100, because like I said, you never know when the play action pass is coming. And if you happen to be on 20% when the play action pass comes, you don't have enough energy to fight that fight. That's how cornerbacks like myself get beat over the top. How they let that boy behind him for that long pass? Didn't he know it was coming? Yeah, he did, but he didn't have enough energy to run 60 yards down the field and defend that pass. So stay on the charger as much as you can so that when the opportunity comes, you have enough energy to fight. I just wanted to share that. And in closing the story, that's very fitting. Like I said, I'm not in that aerospace, but I did do a lot of research coming in. And something that I learned is that when an aircraft is attempting to take off, right? And I'm gonna read this so that it's direct. There are more forces against it than with. You have this force called drag, which is the air against it. You have gravity constantly pulling it down to the ground, and you have the sheer weight of the object that the people are attempting to elevate. Everything around it says that it shouldn't be able to get off the ground. But there is this special force called thrust that propels the aircraft forward. And when the power of that thrust is greater than the power of that drag and the gravity, the aircraft is able to pick up enough speed to push through the opposition. And then at the point of around 315 kilometers per hour, something magical happens. The captain pulls back their control stick, and all of a sudden, as the nose begins to rise, the very forces that were working against the machine begin to elevate it off the ground and push it higher. You, my friends in this room, you are the thrust pushing the mission of inclusivity forward. Yes, there is opposition. Yes, there is drag. Yes, there is gravity of being the underdog year after year, generation after generation, consistently pulling you down. But if you can generate enough force individually and collectively, that momentum will drive this mission forward at such a force, rate, and speed that what has been working against us for generations will be the very force to elevate our cause. And that is how we turn this resistance into momentum.
Wow. Mr. Boone is speaking our language, certainly, isn't he? Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Boone. And to our panelists, let's give them another round of applause, please. Great conversation. So at this time, I want to go ahead and pivot to our open forum Q&A. We have 2 mics at the front. So if you have a question, comment, please feel free to come up to the mic and ask. And when you do come up, please just state your name and whatever your question is and who you would like to answer the question.
This question will be for the entire panel. My name is Wardig Bado Jr. I'm a student at Elizabeth City State University. Prior to becoming a student, I spent 11 years in the Navy, right? And the last 4 years I was in the Navy, I was part of the Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Program. And part of that program is things don't happen where the culture doesn't allow it, right? It's the idea of a slippery slope, right? If someone feels that they can make, lewd jokes all the time, it becomes easier for them to do the next step, right? And then if they do that step, well, no one stopped me, I'll keep going. You know what I'm saying? I was one of the best technicians on that ship, right? I knew everything about the nuclear reactor, right? I volunteered for everything. So when I was part of that, people listened to me. And then there are people who had distorted thinking. Well, we're warfighters. We're not, general civilians. I could talk to them in a assertive way, right? And change the way that they were thinking. I'm changing that space from being a warfighter to becoming an aviation professional. I've never been here before. How does someone like me, how do I have that fight of assertive talking, speaking, without using violence, if that makes sense?
So the skills that you've picked up in the Navy are so transferable to the civilian world, right? Those leadership skills, your ability to present yourself. I mean, you just asked an amazing question and told us the context. I mean, I think you just need, it might be helpful to sit down in the Career Services office at your institution and have the Career Services counselor help you translate those very specific skills that you think don't translate, to add that to your resume and your story and your narrative of who you are. Because most employers want you yesterday, right? They want all that training you got already that they didn't pay for, right? So you are like, you know, the cherry on top. I'm telling you, right? You just have to believe that about yourself. And to have a couple of examples that make sense, like I wouldn't go nuclear reactor on them because they won't understand that, right? But have a couple of things that really translate to aviation, and I think you're the whole package.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. You had any-
No, thank you for your service. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Katina Barnes. I have a two-part question. As a black woman, we have two strikes against us. We have a target on our backs, and the current administration has declared war against the 92%, forcing us out of our workplace, out of the workplace. How can we better protect ourselves when sometimes we are being disrespected and attacked by misogynoir in the workplace? My second question is, the majority over the last 4 years now believes racism against us as a black community does not exist. What is the best way to combat microaggressions in the workplace without looking like the angry black woman or black man?
Well, her first question, I feel like you're the most qualified to answer, so I'm gonna let you take that one on. Yeah, I'll take the second part.
I think at this moment, we're the 92%. You have your tribe, you have your circle, you have the folks that you know are gonna rock with you. Lean on them, lean on us. We got your back. You're not alone. I think that's what the 92%, you know, we wear it on our t-shirts. We're on the call every Sunday with Joe Taka and all of them. We're not alone in this fight. And we are on the side of right. So make sure that you are leaning into that circle now more than ever. It is more important to spend time with folks that love you, that trust you, that respect your thoughts and opinion. What I also can say is black women are the most educated person, body, black American women on the planet right now. Lean into that. If we don't feel welcome in our place of business, there are lots of places that will hire us. And if we don't feel like we're welcome in those places, perhaps maybe we galvanize with that 92% and create our own. Now is the right time to do that too. Don't forget your power. Don't think that don't for 1 second believe that you are less than, because we were on the side of right. And now Colbert asked Kamala Harris if she wanted to say, "I told you so" now. What's the point, right? What's the point? We already seeing what is happening. Now it's time to turn in and take care of us. People, I don't know if I watch a lot of social media and TikTok. I have a lot of young people around me. And they're saying black women are busy learning the fan dance and ain't worried about the world burning. That's because we're taking care of our mental health right now. We're preparing. We know that this is the long game. We're preparing for that. So continue to do that. Lean in that and take care of yourself. The fight's going to be there, and we know when we fight, we win. But right now, we got to take care of us, and that's okay. We don't have to apologize for that.
Yeah, and in terms of your second question, I would say, sister, you got enough education and I have to respond with anger. You may feel it, but the words you use, you can articulate your experience and your feelings in a way that they cannot label you the angry black woman. And I think that's, once again, preparing yourself for the fight ahead, right? You know, and that's what I would say. Find a way to articulate what you're experiencing in a way that they can't deny that, because you're taking care of two birds in one stone, right? In sales, they say handle the objection ahead of the objection happening. So if you perceive that there's going to be a price or budgetary objection up front, then you say, hey, I understand that costs might be a concern for you, and I want to address that up front, right? With that being said, the lights got dark. We are in.
Whoa.
With that being said, I want to share with you why this service comes at this cost and how other clients have leveraged the results of this to justify the investment up front. You see what I did? Before you told me that your money was funny, I explained how people get it straight, right? And so in the same way, you know what their microaggressions will be. It's in one of maybe 5 different categories. Handle that up front so that when it comes up, you've already said something about it and it's no surprise. Does that help?
Yeah, and what we know is they're going to still define us as angry. That's okay. We're angry right now. We have the right to be, right? Even if you do that up front, you're still going to be named something. You're going to be named angry. You're going to be named lazy. You're going to be whatever the case may be. I don't care. Your opinion of me is none of my business. I'm here to do my job and meet my goals, and I lean on that 100%.
Hey, good morning. I'll just step over here because I can't see y'all. So my name is Shelly-Ann. I'm an immigrant from Jamaica, and I kind of come to this conversation with a more global lens. My disillusionment with the country that I aspired to for many years as a child, it didn't just start increasing with Donald Trump's second term, now that he's doing literally everything he can to sort of destabilize the lives of like poor people and other underrepresented folks. It kind of began long before that, when I was able to see that people I actually voted for were, willingly supporting what is now largely accepted to be genocide. Right, so considering the fact that I think we can't necessarily just rely on regime change to sustain the justice that we are seeking as Black aviation professionals and underrepresented people, the global majority in general, what are some organizations that you know of that are doing that work that can sustain us regardless of what the politics of the day is and regardless of what American capital decides to do with their money? And in terms of your work that you're doing, how do global movements of solidarity influence that work that you're doing here in the United States?
Happy birthday, Jamaica.
Thank you.
It's Jamaica's anniversary.
62.
62 years. There are 93 urban leagues across 36 cities 36 states across the country. So you can plug in with your local urban league. We are in for the long haul unapologetically. NAACP, Legal Defense Fund, your grassroots organizations, absolutely, or OBAP. Get involved with the organizations that are doing work that you are passionate about. I always say in these conversations that while Jamaica is a young country, the USA is too. This is an experiment, and then we're being really, democracy, the United States is being really tested right now. We're only 250 years old. That's not very long on this planet. So we're going through something right now, and we will get through it. It's just going to take a little time and a little stretching of all of us to imagine what this democracy will be. This is a test. The pendulum does swing both ways, and real heavy. So we had Barack Obama for a wonderful 8 years. I'll say wonderful. Speaking for Michelle Merriweather only. And the answer in this country to 8 years in power of Barack Obama is what we have right now. The pendulum will naturally swing the other way. My hope, and I don't think that Barack Obama was that far to the left. I think the pendulum can potentially swing all the way to the far left, which isn't that great of a place to be either. Speaking for Michelle Merriweather only. I think what we have to do is mobilize, find those organizations, and create that pathway to where the pendulum swings to a place that is comfortable for all of us. That we in this moment, I was talking to a funder the other day about how we in this moment can start to define the democracy that we all can have a part of. 250 years ago, we were not a part of we were the property. We were not the decision makers or at the table when they were creating this democracy. Now in this time that we are being stretched, we have a chance to have a say in what democracy looks like. So that means using your voice in your vote. That means being an advocate. That means showing up in spaces that you don't traditionally do. If that's the Urban League, yes. And then there's other voter engagement organizations, policy organizations. There's a great one called Policy Link that is amazing, that are doing really great work to dream up what that democracy looks like. So plug in with them. But I think just find where your interest and your passion lie and plug in with those places and spaces, because that's where the think tanks happen. And now is the time to create that momentum. So on the other side, we're all creating and having a voice in that democracy that we believe in, that we have a hand in creating.
And then there was also the part about what global movements, if any, have you guys been inspired by in your own individual work to advance justice?
I think the one that comes to mind for me right now is probably South Africa and apartheid, because we are, and I'm going to India and South Africa next year to study just that. We have historically, we define it by race. India defines it by class. It's the same story, and what is happening in both in Gaza and historically in South Africa is apartheid. And I think the way that I have those two, the way that South Africa has come out of it and is telling the story, I think is powerful. The way that Germany tells the story of how they came through their genocide and the Holocaust is powerful. Germany has monuments all throughout the country to say that we remember, we'll never forget, and we'll never go back there again. And while our administration is currently putting back up those monuments to remind us of what happened, Germany is a great example of that. They will not, their country made a decision and a vow to not go back. And that is what we have to work towards here. To atone for what happened, to say we're not going to go back, and to make sure that everybody knows the history and the stories so that we don't forget.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I really appreciate this session and conversation. My name is Sam Maturi. I am a fellow leader and aviator. My question is for Mr. Boone. As a fellow iPhone 12 user, my question to you is, what does staying on the charger mean practically to you? What kind of charger are you using? What kind of cord are you using? And how do you carry that daily?
Yeah. So, you know, I am a person of faith, and so my first charging station is the Word and the presence of God. I don't think that I can show up the way that I show up if I'm not connected to the source. So, you know, even this morning before sitting in this seat, I have preparations that I've made, but I'll always surrender and say whatever someone in that room needs to hear and whoever I need to be when I sit in that seat, please take out of me what I have planned and put into me what you have planned and what they need. And if I don't do that, I find myself anxious, I find myself low on energy, and so whatever form of faith and connectivity that is for you, I encourage that first and foremost. Secondly, you have to find what fills you up. For instance, introvert versus extrovert. One is energized by being around people. One is drained by being around people. You have to find out which one you are. And for me, you know, I'm energized by being in a close-knit, intimate group of people I love and I know who love me. I love laughter, and I connect through activity. So sometimes just sitting still and looking at each other, it make me feel a little weird, right? But if we're all doing something together that we can look back years from now, but remember when we da-da-da-da-da, that's energizing to me. And so I would say find out what your charger is. My iPhone won't even take the plug-in charger no more. The charging port is off. So I have the one that connects to the magnetic, right? So find your cord, right? And figure out what that is. And feel free to connect with me outside of here, because sometimes having a mutual connection, an iPhone 12 user, we can figure out how to stay charged together. Yeah.
Okay, good morning. I don't know what time it is. Might be afternoon, but good day to all of you. Thank you, Ms. DeVivo, Ms. Merriweather, and Mr. Boone for joining us, and Dr. Theodore for a great panel. My question is, how do you find the courage? You all talked a lot about advocacy and speaking up. How do you find the courage to speak up at the expense of your own self? So I can relate to this question, like, there's a time I lost somebody close to me and I didn't understand why I was grieving for so long. And someone said to me that grief is the price that you pay for love. And so when it comes to advocacy and speaking up, is self-sacrifice the price that you pay for that?
Wow. That was profound. I think it's a yes and. I mean, a lot of the great leaders that I look toward have all had some form of pain in their process. You talk about South African apartheid and how many years were spent in prison. You talk about some of the greatest leaders in this world, and they're not here to sit with us today and tell us their story. So I do think there's a form of sacrifice, and you talk about, you know, the faith that I ascribe to is one of the greatest sacrifices, the greatest sacrifice in human history. And so what you have to do, or what I try to do, is it says, you know, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. So for the joy set before you, you have to look generations down the line and ask yourself, is this sacrifice of me worth, you know, the growth of Dewan, the growth of think about those who will benefit from what you're doing today? And if you can look in the mirror and say, yes, that sacrifice is worth it, then it's easier for you to navigate the moments of grief, the moments of loss, the moments of micro and macro aggressions, and go, I know why I'm here. And then go back to your charger and get ready to fight again. That's what I would have to say about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would encourage you, please don't do it alone if you can, right? Have a tribe around you, right, that you can talk to and that lift you up, and you lift others up as part of that as well. Because trying to do this work alone is, no matter what you're doing, is really hard. And so you need that emotional support. And in a lot of ways, you got to think about it like training as a high-performance athlete, right? You got to be charging. You got to have, got to eat well. You got to have good sleep, right? All the ingredients that go into make you a high-performing individual.
Thank you.
I always say this is hard work, yes, but it is also heart work. And in heart work, sometimes you're willing to make that sacrifice. You don't even think about it. You say the hard thing, you do the hard thing. I'll use our police chief, for example. Folks were asking him what he's going to do with ICE, because they're making crazy arrests here in Seattle. And he said, the right thing, I'm going to do the right thing. And he said that might mean that I'll go to jail, and I'm willing to do it because it's the right thing to do. So you have to decide for you where your heart is, and the heart will guide you. Your spiritual guide will guide you to do what is right for you.
I think it's afternoon. I don't know. Hi. It's morning. Good morning. My name is Ivan A. Hart. I'm with the trade association called Airlines for America. It represents the major U.S. airlines here. So I have two things. I love statistics. I love numbers. And numbers sometimes mean more to me. So I'm going to give a stark number, and then I'm going to ask my question. In the past 3 months, 300,000 Black women have left the labor force. Since 2020, 500 and I believe 18,000 have not come back. I am a Black woman in the workforce, and my specialty is DEI. My question is to Ms. Merriweather. You are clearly in the DEI workforce. I am constantly trying to stay in it because it is hard work. It is what I believe in to my core. How have you lasted in not only this climate, but in 2020 and before? And what advice would you give to someone like me who is and will be and is planning to be and will continue to be in this work?
First, thank you, because it is hard. 2020 was real hard.
It was. Oh, I'm sorry. And Mr. Boone, there's growth and change. Get a new phone, sir.
You know what? September is my time to get a new phone.
I just needed to say that.
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right.
the charging port don't work no more.
At some point, you got to upgrade the phone. That's self-love.
That's self-love. That's care.
Maybe I won't have to charge as much.
Yeah, that's
okay.
self-care, Mr. Boone.
Okay, I'll take that.
Okay, sorry.
Action item.
I'm with you, so I won't say it out loud. Thank you for that. This is tough. 2020, 2021 was the hardest time in my entire life between COVID, the murder of George Floyd, the death of my father. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and the list goes on. It was the hardest time of my life. But what I knew was that it's bigger than me. This work is bigger than me. And this work also fuels me. So while I know that times get tough, I find my time to rest and to charge. For me, it's with my faith and with my family, and then with the folks that I get to do this work with across the country. So my fellow CEOs and my fellow Urban League family across this country. That's my recharge. That's where I know that I'm going to be fueled and fed, and I know, and it is a reminder for me that I'm not in this work alone. There are a lot of groups where folks are focused on DEI efforts and charging, and right now, building that strategy and recharging themselves for the long haul, because we need you in this fight. We need those professionals in this fight for the long haul. So find what charges you and what refuels you. That statistic, that a lot of those folks, those Black women that left the labor force, were in the federal government. That was by design. That was by design. They wrote the playbook and they made it plain. They knew that they were going to reduce the federal workforce because they knew that's the #1 employer of Black folks, the federal government. And so they knew exactly what they were doing. My hope is that we are building that same strategy to change the course. My hope next year, 2026, and then again in 2028. But we have to build that strategy right now, and those diversity, equity, inclusion professionals have to be a part of that story and a part of that strategy. So buckle up, we in it for the long haul. Even when it gets tough, find your space, find your moment of rest and respite, and keep going.
Hello. My name is Jada, originally from Memphis, but I live in Kentucky now. I got my degree from Middle Tennessee State University in aviation management. So I'm gonna give you a little backstory because you talked about like federal workplace and stuff like that. So at the beginning of this year, I was supposed to be going to the FAA, like right before like the presidency switched, and then the federal hiring freeze was enacted, and my offer got rescinded. Not only did it hurt me, but watching everything play out, like the people that recruited me, did my interviews, everything that they were experiencing on the inside ended up resulting in them taking that buyout deal, and now they work in the private sector. So in my eyes, I'm like, I'm 24, by the way. So going into it, you know, the FAA, that's like the top dogs, and seeing people that, that recruited you, that you look up to, that were mentors for you, and they're backing out and they're taking the private sector. What advice would you give in the sense of turning resistance into momentum in that perspective? And any of you can answer.
So what's your degree in?
Aerospace.
Aerospace. So you were going to the FAA to be a?
Planner, so overseeing grant assurances and
Okay.
issuing grants to airports for airfield and terminal
Gotcha.
designs.
Okay. So have you looked at other entities that do that same kind of work? Like, what if you went to work for the National Business Aviation Association? Or you went to work for Airlines for America if they had a grant-making piece, right? You should definitely connect with Ivan. You look for similar kinds of opportunities. Does Middle Tennessee have somebody in their career services office who's focused on aviation?
Oh, I've graduated. I graduated 2 years ago.
Don't you get don't you get lifelong placement?
I don't know. In my mind, I'm like,
should
I
find-
graduated, so
my institution gives lifelong placement. So if 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you find yourself in need of a new position, we have employers who'll come to us and say, I need experience. So I would find out if you still get career services help, right? So, you might get access to Handshake. I'm sure they use Handshake.
Oh, definitely.
Right? And you'll see the job pieces listed there. But this is the time to rely on networks. So Women in Aviation, go to the Women in Aviation conference. Go talk to the folks at the expo. Make sure you're talking to the folks at the expo here too. Talk to the airlines. Planners are part of their business strategies as well. Maybe you just pivot, right? You start in commercial, you might think about cargo, you might think about global organizations like Women in Aviation, governmental lobbyist organizations like Airlines for America. Just that job and that skill set is still needed for this time. It just may not be at the FAA.
Thank you.
Sure.
And this will be our last question because we are wrapping up and approaching our time. Go ahead, sir.
No problem. My name is James Hunter. I'm a first officer for Mesa Airlines. I want to thank you guys for being here and contributing to making a space to talk about these sensitive topics. My question is on branding and kind of like messaging. I find that a challenge in advocating for our community sometimes is in messaging and branding. You can kind of see that in an example of like the campaign Defund the Police, maybe, right? And some people being confused about that or offended by that, thinking that it was, trying to gut the budget, right? Rather than really being reforming, reallocating budgets and stuff like that. I get a chance to encounter a lot of individuals that believe DEI is a negative term, that it's a handout, and I do the best that I can to educate them and advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I want to know, again, where, I guess, would you think is the best place to start in having that discussion?
I think to one of the earlier responses is first engaging with those who are already on the same side of the table and figuring out how you can collaborate to do that. The other thing that comes to mind for me as someone who deals with youth is if you walk into any other schools that I've spoken at with that uniform on, you are going to garner the attention of people who never even knew that it was possible to be who you are. And I think that's the most important place to have influence, is in those classrooms and in those communities, because once again, the demand is there and it will be there over the next couple of decades. And so if you go influence the people who will be able to be available at the time that the need is there, you've already impacted DEI because you've helped cultivate the people who will be undeniable at that time because the demand will eclipse the supply. And so I can only speak to it from my area of exposure, but those would be the two things I say is connect, collaborate, and then go empower other people to be who you are 5, 10, 20 years from now?
Yes, absolutely. I also say, I don't care what you call it, I care what you do. That is far more important to me than what you call it. Diversity, equity, inclusion is not a bad word. It certainly shouldn't be. But if you are making your spaces more inclusive, meaning that, you know, not everybody looks like you at the table or thinks like you at the table, you're doing the right thing. If you are making your spaces more equitable, meaning the curb cut on the sidewalk or the flat ramp to the airplane, that's making your spaces more inclusive. You don't, and I will also say DEI is the bad word. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is okay, right? Spell it out, right? Spell it out and give the story behind it, the example behind it, and the why behind it. Defund the police, they didn't mean, well, some are true abolitionists, absence of police because of the history of policing. But what they meant was invest in community safety, right? So show me what your values are by where your investment is. That's what we told our city here. Show me that you care about community by what your budget states. I don't care how many police you feel like you need to feel safe in your community. And I love our police chief, but police don't necessarily make me feel safe. What makes me feel safe and what makes our children feel safe is knowing that they can go to school every day and learn and not have to worry about ducking under a table when a bullet comes flying. That police can't stop the bullet, they come after, right? So what we're trying to say in defund the police is invest in public safety. So I don't care what you call it. I care about what you do and where the investments are. And that's what matters.
Thank you.
Dr. Johnson? Dr. Johnson, how tall are you?
6'3".
6'3". I was speaking with another pilot who told me how uncomfortable it was for him on long flights because I think he was 6'4". Have you ever experienced the discomfort of being in a captain's chair?
Absolutely.
Do you think that it could be a deterrent at a certain point for someone, maybe not to be in the industry, but to take those longer legs if they were exceedingly tall?
I've heard that, yes, it is.
Okay. And what if the pool of available candidates to fill a demand gap were all 6'4" and over, but they would not sit in that chair unless you made more space in the cockpit? What do you think that people would have to consider doing?
Pivoting.
Okay, so you see how you didn't have to be black to be a part of that problem, or you didn't have to be male or female. I mean, granted, 6'5", maybe mostly males, but what I just did was had a conversation about a problem that you may face in the future that had nothing to do with your race, socioeconomic status, or gender, but it is a true problem that you may face simply because you have not accommodated an entire group of people who could be otherwise qualified to sit in that seat, right? And I think that sometimes that's the way that we have to lay it out for people. There's tall people who could fly this plane, but they don't want to sit in this seat for 12 hours. So you may have to consider adding some space in this cockpit so that they can move this seat back.
Hi, my name is Tammy. I just have a comment. I'm going to plug myself. You can follow me on Instagram at Make Your Dreams True without the E because it's all about you. Thank you for the information that you all provided today. I've worked in corporate America for many years. Just recently, I've come into aviation about 2 years ago now that my daughter's frontal cortexes have closed and they're not, driving me crazy. And I have a 4-year-old granddaughter in 30 days who wants to be a pilot when she grows up. I have a cute video of her I'll show you too. But what I want to say to everyone in the room, regardless of your skin color, your socioeconomic background, your gender, there was a gentleman who had a dream that one day we'd all be judged by none of that, but simply by our skill. And so when we walk into a room, we have to walk in that room as though God sent us, because we're all humans. And if we were to cut us open, we would all bleed the same. If we were to do an x-ray, our hearts and our organs would all be in the same place. So like you said, DEI is not a bad thing. We wouldn't need it if we needed it. So for individuals here who may face opposition, and you know that opposition is specifically because of race, gender, socioeconomic status, pray for those who present you with that, and just continue to walk in your greatness and know that you belong there and that you're supposed to be there. And it'll work out for you, I promise, because I've experienced it throughout life. I'll be 50 next year. And when I come up against it, I look it dead in the face and be like, you ready? Because that's how our people got us to where we are today. So just have that and know that you can, you will, and you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So with that, I appreciate you all having some flexibility and let us go a little bit over. We're going to go ahead and close out this Power Under Pressure panel. I want to thank our esteemed panelists again, and I want to thank you all. I know you all are not here by accident. You all are here by choice, and we appreciate, as the organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, on behalf of the board, we appreciate the work you do day in and day out. It does not go unnoticed, and it does not go unappreciated by us. So thank you for allowing us to put this on, and I look forward to having future conversations similar to this. Maybe not similar, because hopefully the work will continue to get done, but being able to re-engage and see how far we've come in 12 months. So thank you. Let's give everybody a round of applause.